I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this. My name is Alex Donovan, and until 3 weeks ago, I was just another college dropout trying to make ends meet in Boulder, Colorado. Now I'm not sure how much longer I have before whatever's been happening at the Super Target on Pearl Street catches up with me too. It started with Megan's accident. That's what management called it anyway. An accident. We'd been friends since orientation day 6 months ago. Both of us wound up at Target after our respective life plans fell apart. For me, it was flunking out of CU Boulder's engineering program. For her, it was a photography degree from CSU that led nowhere but debt. Megan was on the night shift stocking team with me. Nothing glamorous, just unpacking merchandise between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. at the store, located at the corner of 30th and Pearl, tucked between McGuckin Hardware and the shopping center with Safeway. We'd chat during breaks, occasionally grab breakfast at Snooze on Pearl Street after our shift. Normal stuff. Then came that Tuesday morning, just before dawn. I'd stepped out back for a smoke break when I heard the screams coming from inside. By the time I rushed back in, a crowd had formed near the stockroom entrance. Through gaps between shocked co-workers, I caught glimpses of Megan on the floor, her body twisted in ways that human bodies shouldn't bend. Her eyes were open, but the person I knew wasn't there anymore. The official story was that she fell from a high shelf she shouldn't have climbed. But I was working that section with her all night. She never went near the top shelves. The store closed for exactly 6 hours. Not 5, not 7, 6. When we reopened, there was a water-damaged tarp covering the spot where I last saw her. The next day, our store manager, Craig, gathered the overnight team for a safety review meeting. Instead of the standard corporate guidelines, he handed each of us a laminated card with 6 rules printed in red text. "These are specific to our location," he said, his voice flat, eyes never quite meeting ours. "Follow them without exception." I scanned the list, feeling the skin on my neck tighten. Never remain in aisle 7 past 3:17 a.m. If you hear your name called over the intercom between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not respond. The employee bathroom in the stockroom is off limits between midnight and 5 a.m. If you see a customer wearing all red, notify management immediately. Do not approach them. There is no freezer section 3 in the back room. If you see a door labeled as such, walk away immediately. Never, under any circumstances, use the freight elevator after 1 a.m. When Dennis, one of the newer guys, laughed and asked if this was some kind of joke, Craig didn't smile. "Megan didn't follow the rules," he said quietly. Then he walked away, leaving us with our laminated cards and a chill that had nothing to do with the store's aggressive air conditioning. I should have quit right then. We all should have. But jobs aren't easy to come by, and I have rent to pay on my apartment off Baseline Road. Besides, I figured it was just some bizarre management tactic, a way to cope with a workplace fatality by creating structure. I was wrong. God, I was so wrong. I've decided to document what's been happening since then. If something happens to me, at least there will be a record. Maybe it will save someone else. I've already witnessed 2 more accidents in the past 3 weeks. I don't know what's happening at the Pearl Street Target, but I know the rules are real, and I know what happens when you break them. Hello, viewers. If you wish your stories or experiences to be narrated by me, share them on our own subreddit, which you can join from the description below. I will pick the stories from the community and narrate them, and every once in a while, we will host a 3-hour story compilation. The first night after receiving our laminated cards, I approached my shift with caution. Boulder winter nights are already cold and dark, but something about the empty parking lot of the Pearl Street Target made the darkness feel thicker, somehow watchful. I tucked the rule card into my front pocket, feeling ridiculous yet unwilling to leave it behind. "This is some next-level corporate bullshit," Maria said as we punched in at 9:50 p.m. She'd been working nights for 3 years, longer than anyone else on our team. "You think it's just about liability?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Because of what happened to Megan?" Maria's normally relaxed expression tightened. She glanced around the break room, then leaned closer. "Don't know what to think. Been here since they built this place in 2016, and I've never seen anything like these rules before. But you'll follow them?" She didn't answer directly. "I've got 2 kids in middle school over in Louisville. Can't afford to lose this job." Our night started normally enough. The truck had delivered 78 pallets that needed to be unpacked, sorted, and shelved before morning. I was assigned to electronics and housewares, while Maria took health and beauty. Dennis and 3 others were handling the massive seasonal section. Valentine's displays were coming down, St. Patrick's and Easter merchandise going up. The first few hours passed uneventfully. I kept checking my watch, hyper-aware of the time as we approached midnight. The employee bathroom rule would be in effect soon, and despite telling myself it was nonsense, I made sure to use the facilities at 11:50 p.m., just in case. Around 1:30 a.m., I was restocking wireless earbuds when Dennis sidled up beside me. "Dude, this is killing me," he whispered, scratching nervously at his beard. "I've been doing overnight retail for 6 years. Target, Walmart, Best Buy over on 29th Street. Never seen this kind of shit." I shrugged, scanning an item with more focus than necessary. "Just follow the rules, man." "That's my point. They don't make sense. Why 317 specifically? Why the freight elevator cut off?" "I don't know. Maybe the elevator's on some kind of maintenance schedule." Dennis snorted. "Yeah, a maintenance schedule that makes people end up like, don't." I cut him off sharply. "Just don't." He rolled his eyes but dropped it. "Whatever. I'm taking my break. Need anything from King Soopers? I'm gonna grab a sandwich." I shook my head, and he headed toward the front of the store. That's when I realized what time it was. "Dennis," I called after him. "It's past 1 a.m. Don't use the—" But he was already gone, pushing through the double doors toward the front of the store. I considered going after him, but my cart was half unpacked, and my section was due by 3 a.m. Besides, he'd probably just use the main entrance. The freight elevator rule probably didn't matter if you were leaving the building, right? I forced myself to focus on my work, methodically placing items on shelves, scanning, checking inventory levels. The monotony was almost soothing, and I lost track of time until my walkie-talkie crackled to life. "Alex, you there?" It was Maria, her voice tense. "Yeah, what's up?" "Have you seen Dennis?" "He was supposed to relieve Jasmine for her break 15 minutes ago." I frowned. "He left for King Soopers like an hour ago. Said he was getting a sandwich." The silence that followed stretched just a beat too long. "King Soopers closed at midnight," Maria finally said. "It's Tuesday, remember?" A cold weight settled in my stomach. Maybe he went to the 7-Eleven on Arapahoe instead. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. "Let me know if you see him, okay?" I mumbled an agreement and went back to work, but my rhythm was broken. Every shadow in my peripheral vision seemed to shift. Every distant sound from the cavernous stockroom made me tense. By 2:45 a.m. I was finishing up in housewares, just 1 mile away from the forbidden aisle 7. I couldn't help glancing down its length. Nothing but bedding, pillows, and bathroom accessories. Nothing unusual. Checking my watch, I saw I had plenty of time before the 3:17 deadline. I decided to restock some towels, keeping careful track of the time. That's when the intercom crackled. The Target intercom system has a distinctive sound, a static hiss, followed by a soft tone. Every employee knows it by heart, but this time, the static lingered longer than usual, with a strange undercurrent, almost like running water or whispering voices. Then, "Alex Donovan, please come to the freight elevator." Alex Donovan to the freight elevator. My name. Over the intercom, at 2:51 a.m. Rule 2. If you hear your name called over the intercom between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., do not respond. I froze, towel still in hand. The voice had sounded like Craig, our manager, but there was something off about it. A hollowness, as if someone were speaking into an empty oil drum. Alex Donovan, this is urgent. Please come to the freight elevator immediately. My heart hammered against my ribs. Craig shouldn't even be here. He worked days. And why would he call for me specifically? I placed the towel on the shelf with shaking hands and moved deeper into aisle 6, away from both the intercom speaker and the direction of the freight elevator. My walkie-talkie buzzed. "Did you hear that?" Maria whispered. "Yeah," I breathed, barely audible. "Don't go. Remember Rule 2. "I won't," I promised, then added, "Where are you?" "Cosmetics, far side of the store." She paused. "Alex, I just saw Dennis's jacket by the emergency exit near the freight elevator." My blood went cold. "You don't think he—" The intercom cut me off. "Final call for Alex Donovan. Come to the freight elevator now. Dennis needs help." Maria and I said nothing. We didn't need to. Dennis had broken Rule 6, and now something was using his predicament to lure me into breaking Rule 2. "I'm staying right here," I whispered into the walkie-talkie. "Good," Maria replied. "Don't move until—" A scream cut through the store, so loud and sudden that I dropped my walkie-talkie. It clattered against the tile floor as the screaming continued, raw, desperate sounds punctuated by what might have been my name. It was Dennis's voice, and it was coming from the direction of the freight elevator. The screaming stopped as suddenly as it had started, leaving behind a silence that pressed against my ears. I retrieved my walkie-talkie with trembling fingers. "Maria?" I whispered. No response. "Maria, are you there?" I tried again, louder this time. The walkie-talkie crackled. "I'm here. Don't move, Alex. Stay exactly where you are." "What about Dennis?" A pause. "I'm going to check." "No," I hissed. "The rules—" "I know the rules." She cut me off. "But I've worked here longer than any of you. Craig might be content letting us figure this out the hard way, but I'm not watching another person die." Her voice cracked slightly on the last word. "Then I'm coming too," I said, already moving toward the main aisle. "Absolutely not. You stay put. I'm heading there now, and I'll update you." The walkie-talkie went silent. I stood at the end of aisle 6, paralyzed by indecision. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting the empty store in a harsh, clinical glow. The everyday objects surrounding me, dish towels, picture frames, storage bins, suddenly seemed artificial, like props on a stage. My watch read 3:03 a.m. I needed to be out of aisle 7 by 3:17. A small, desperate part of me suggested doing exactly as Maria said, stay put, wait for her update. But Dennis's scream echoed in my memory, and I couldn't stand by while Maria potentially walked into the same danger. I made my decision. Moving quickly but quietly, I navigated the store's familiar layout, avoiding main pathways, sticking to the shadows. The stockroom entrance loomed ahead, its double doors slightly ajar. The freight elevator was just beyond, in the far corner of the cavernous back area. As I pushed through the doors, the temperature dropped noticeably. The stockroom was dimmer than the sales floor, illuminated only by widely spaced overhead lights. Towers of pallets and boxes created a maze of narrow paths and hidden corners. I stepped carefully, listening for any sound of Maria or Dennis. "Maria?" I called softly, then immediately regretted making any noise. The sound died quickly, as if absorbed by the cardboard and plastic surrounding me. I checked my watch again. 3:09 a.m. I needed to be quick. The freight elevator stood at the far end of the stockroom, its metal doors closed. A red light above it indicated it was stopped at this floor. I approached cautiously, noting the absence of any security cameras in this section. An oversight I'd never considered strange until now. Dennis's denim jacket lay crumpled on the floor a few feet from the elevator, just as Maria had described. I crouched to examine it, then froze when I noticed dark smudges on the sleeve. Blood? I tentatively touched one. It was still wet, but not blood. The substance was thick and oily, with a faint iridescence under the stockroom lights. Alex? I nearly jumped out of my skin at the sound of Maria's voice behind me. I spun around to find her emerging from behind a stack of furniture boxes, her face pale. "I told you to stay put," she hissed, eyes darting to the elevator doors. "I couldn't let you come alone," I said. "Did you find anything? Where were you?" "Employee bathroom." She held up her flashlight. "I thought maybe he went there instead." I frowned. "But that's against Rule 3. "I know. That's why I checked." She approached, eyeing Dennis's jacket. "I found that when I got here. No sign of Dennis." I showed her the dark substance on the sleeve. "Any idea what this is?" She shook her head, then glanced at the elevator. "The call button light is on. Someone pressed it recently." We both stared at the illuminated button, neither of us willing to get closer to the elevator doors. "We should call the police," I suggested. Maria laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "And tell them what? That our co-worker disappeared after breaking one of our magical target rules? They'll think we're high or playing a prank." She had a point. Even if they took us seriously, what would they find? A jacket with some strange oil on it? No signs of struggle, no witnesses except us, and a perfectly normal freight elevator. "We should at least tell Craig," I said. "In the morning," Maria agreed. "For now, we need to get back to the floor. There's nothing we can do here, and..." She checked her watch and cursed. "Alex, it's 3:15. You need to be out of aisle 7 by 3:17. My stomach dropped. "I'm not in aisle 7. I'm in the stockroom." Maria's eyes widened. "Didn't you read the employee handbook? The stockroom layout mirrors the sales floor. This section backs up to aisle 7. I didn't wait to hear more. I ran, weaving through the labyrinth of pallets and boxes, Maria close behind. My watch read 3:16 as we burst through the stockroom doors, both of us panting. "Which way?" I gasped. "Left," Maria pointed. "Get to aisle 8 or 6. I sprinted down the main corridor, counting the aisle numbers. 4 dots, 5, 6. I skidded to a stop at the entrance to aisle 6, nearly colliding with a display of kitchen appliances. My watch read 3:17 exactly. Mariah caught up a moment later. "You made it," she breathed, relief evident in her voice. I nodded, too winded to speak. We stood in silence for a moment, catching our breath. The store seemed impossibly quiet, as if holding its breath along with us. "We should get back to work," Maria finally said. "We still have 3 hours on shift, and the morning team will notice if our sections aren't done." I nodded again, though the thought of resuming normal work after what had just happened seemed absurd. Nevertheless, we separated, each returning to our assigned areas. I tried to focus on the mindless task of stocking shelves, hoping the familiar routine would calm my nerves. It worked to an extent. By 4:30 a.m., I'd finished my sections and was helping in seasonal, arranging St. Patrick's Day decorations with mechanical precision. The night's events seemed almost dreamlike now. The intercom call, Dennis's scream, the oily substance on his jacket. Maybe he'd just gotten spooked and left early. It wouldn't be the first time someone walked out mid-shift. At 5:15 a.m., I took my final break, heading to the employee lounge for coffee. Maria was already there, staring into her mug with red-rimmed eyes. "You okay?" I asked, taking the seat across from her. She looked up, her expression haunted. "I went back to check the freight elevator area after you left. The jacket was gone. I felt a chill run down my back. Maybe Dennis came back for it? Then where is he? His shift isn't over until 6. I had no answer for that. We sat in silence until our break ended, then returned to our duties. At 5:50 a.m., we began preparing for the handover to the morning team. Right on schedule, the front doors unlocked at 6 a.m., admitting the day shift workers who streamed in, coffee cups in hand, faces still puffy with sleep. Craig arrived at 6:05, looking as pressed and polished as always in his red manager's vest. He nodded at us dismissively as we clocked out, showing no indication that anything unusual had happened overnight. As Maria and I walked toward the exit, Craig called out, "Alex, Maria, a moment, please." We exchanged nervous glances but followed him to his small office near customer service. He closed the door behind us. "I understand there was an incident last night," he said without preamble. Maria spoke first. "Dennis is missing. He was here, then he wasn't. We found his jacket by the freight elevator after 1 a.m. Craig's expression remained impassive. "Dennis Barnes is no longer employed at this target location." "What does that mean?" I demanded. "It means," Craig said, his voice eerily calm, "that he chose not to follow the rules. As I mentioned yesterday, these rules are in place for a reason. But what happened to him?" Maria pressed, leaning forward. Craig's eyes met hers, and for a split second, I saw something there that made my insides twist. Not malice or anger, but a profound, bone-deep fear. "You both followed the rules last night," he said instead of answering. "Remember to do the same tonight." He stood, signaling the conversation was over. Outside in the parking lot, the rising sun painted the Flatirons Mountains a brilliant orange. Boulder was waking up, coffee shops along Pearl Street filling with students and professionals, normal life continuing, oblivious to what had happened inside the Target just hours before. "I can't go back in there," Maria said quietly, keys clutched tightly in her hand. I wanted to agree with her, to say I was done too, but the weight of my student loans and rent payments pressed down on me. "What choice do we have?" She gave me a long look. "There's always a choice, Alex. Always." As she walked toward her car, I couldn't shake the feeling that our choices were narrowing by the hour, and I wondered which rule would be tested next. I spent the day in a daze, lying on my mattress in my small apartment off Baseline Road, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Dennis's scream echoing through the store. I tried calling his cell twice, straight to voicemail both times. Around noon, I finally dozed off, only to jerk awake from a nightmare where I was trapped in the freight elevator, descending endlessly as oily liquid seeped through the ceiling, filling the space inch by inch. My phone showed 3 missed calls from an unknown number. No voicemail. By the time evening rolled around, I had almost convinced myself not to go back. I could call in sick, buy myself some time to figure things out. Maybe look for another job. The Whole Foods on Pearl Street was always hiring. But something told me that whatever was happening at Target wouldn't let me go that easily. And I needed to know what happened to Dennis, to Megan. So at 9:45 p.m., I found myself walking through the employee entrance again, the laminated rule card burning a hole in my pocket. The night was clear but bitingly cold, typical for Boulder in February. The Flatirons loomed in the distance, their outline barely visible against the night sky. "You came back," Maria said, looking genuinely surprised as I entered the break room. She looked worse than I felt. Dark circles under her bloodshot eyes, hair hastily pulled back. "You too," I noted, punching in. She shrugged. 3 kids in college, not much choice. Her expression hardened, but I've been asking questions. What kind of questions? I kept my voice low, aware of other employees filing in for the night shift. about the history of this place, about Megan and others. Before she could elaborate, Craig appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. He looked no different than usual, neatly pressed khakis, red vest over a white button-up, short brown hair meticulously combed to the side. But there was something newly unsettling about his perpetual slight smile. "Glad to see everyone made it," he said, eyes lingering on Maria and me for a beat too long. "Let's have a productive night." Once he left, I turned to Maria. "What did you find out?" "Not here," she whispered. "Meet me by the garden center on your first break. 11:30. The first hours of the shift dragged by. I was assigned to HBA, Health, Beauty, and Accessories, on the opposite side of the store from last night's electronics section. The monotonous task of organizing shampoo bottles and face creams should have been mind-numbing, but I jumped at every announcement over the intercom, every distant sound from the stockroom. At precisely 11:30, I made my way to the garden center, a seasonal department that was currently half empty, waiting for spring inventory. Maria was already there, sitting on a stack of plastic planters, a manila folder in her hands. "I went to the Boulder Public Library today," she said without preamble. "Looked up newspaper archives." "And?" She opened the folder and handed me several printed pages. "This target location has a history. Before it was built in 2016, there was an old strip mall here from the 1970s. It was demolished after a structural failure in 2015. She pointed to a headline, "Local shopping center collapses. 3 killed." "The collapse happened at 3:17 in the morning," she continued. "A security guard and 2 maintenance workers were killed. The businesses had been closed for months due to structural concerns, but apparently the guard was still patrolling." I studied the article, noting the location matched our store perfectly. "So that explains Rule 1, the 3:17 time limit for aisle 7. Maria nodded grimly. "That's just the beginning. Did you know there have been 4 other accidents at this Target since it opened? Not counting Megan, all overnight employees." My mouth went dry. 4? I talked to a barista at the Starbucks next door who's been there since the place opened. She remembers each one because the store would always close for exactly 6 hours afterward. "Jesus," I breathed. "Did she know what happened to them?" "Different stories each time. One supposedly fell from a ladder, another had some kind of seizure in the bathroom. One was found in the freezer, hypothermia, they said, and one just disappeared during his shift. Never found." I connected the dots. "The rules, they match up with the accidents." "Exactly. After each incident, a new rule appeared. But here's what really got me." She pulled out a final article, dated 1973. "Construction halted after discovery at Crossroads Mall site." The brief article described how construction workers digging the foundation for the original strip mall had uncovered what archaeologists initially thought was a Native American burial site. Work was paused for investigation, but ultimately resumed after experts determined it was not historically significant. "The Arapaho tribe tried to block construction," Maria explained. "They claimed it was built over some kind of sacred or forbidden ground." The article doesn't go into detail, but the barista from Starbucks? Her grandmother is Arapaho. She said there are stories about this land being thin, a place where the barrier between worlds isn't solid. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to process it all. "So, you think what? That the store is haunted? Cursed?" Maria gave me a level look. "I think something is here with us. Something that established rules and punishes those who break them. But why? What does it want?" She shook her head. "I don't know. But I have a theory about the freight elevator." She lowered her voice further. "I think it goes somewhere else. Somewhere it's not supposed to." A chill ran down my back that had nothing to do with the February cold. "If you believed all this, why did you come back?" Maria's eyes flickered to the main store. Because of Jasmine. Who's Jasmine? Started 2 weeks ago. Young girl, right out of high school. She's on tonight. Craig assigned her to frozen foods. I thought about that for a moment. Frozen foods? Near the backroom freezers? Maria nodded. Including the non-existent freezer section 3 from Rule 5. I heard Craig specifically tell her to do inventory there before dawn. My blood ran cold. He's setting her up to break a rule. That's what I think too. I couldn't just not show up knowing that. The weight of this realization struck us both into silence. Finally, I asked, "What do we do?" "Warner, make sure she stays away from that section and..." She hesitated, then pulled a small object from her pocket, a digital voice recorder. "I'm going to get proof. Record what happens if someone breaks a rule. That's too dangerous. I'm not planning to break the rules myself." She tucked the recorder back into her pocket. "But if something happens, I want evidence." We returned to the sales floor separately to avoid suspicion. My mind raced as I mechanically stocked shelves. Maria's research explained some things, but raised even more questions. What was the connection between the rules and the accidents? What happened to people who broke them? And most disturbing of all, was Craig deliberately leading employees to break rules? At 1 a.m., I took my second break, heading to the break room for a sandwich from my bag. To my surprise, Jasmine was there, a petite girl with dyed purple hair pulled into a ponytail, scrolling through her phone as she ate microwave ramen. "You're Jasmine, right?" I asked, taking the seat across from her. "I'm Alex." She looked up, mildly suspicious. "Yeah, you're on electronics usually, right?" "That's me." I tried to sound casual. "How's frozen foods treating you?" She shrugged. "Fine. Boring. Tonight I have to do inventory in some back freezer I've never been to before." She rolled her eyes. "Section 3, whatever that is." My heart skipped a beat. "Actually, about that." The break room door opened, and Craig stepped in. "Jasmine, there you are. When you're done, I need you to start that inventory. The manifest is on my desk." "Sure thing," she said. Once Craig left, I leaned forward urgently. "Listen, Jasmine. About freezer section 3, it doesn't exist." Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Craig just said, "I know what he said, but trust me. If you see a door labeled freezer section AM3, don't go in. Don't even approach it." She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "Is this some kind of hazing thing? Because it's not funny." "It's not hazing. It's about your safety." I pulled out my laminated card. "Did you get one of these after Megan's accident?" She shook her head slowly. "These are rules, important ones." I pushed the card across the table. "Copy these down, seriously." She glanced at the card, then back at me, clearly skeptical. "This sounds like bullshit. Just please, especially Rule 5, about the freezer section." Before she could respond, my walkie-talkie crackled. "Alex to electronics for customer assistance," came the automated message. "I have to go," I said, standing. "But promise me you'll stay away from that freezer." She didn't promise, but she did take a photo of my rule card with her phone before handing it back. It would have to be enough. The rest of the night passed in tense anticipation. I tried keeping an eye on Jasmine from a distance while completing my own tasks. Around 2:30 a.m., I spotted her pushing a cart toward the stockroom and felt my stomach knot with anxiety. I was about to follow when my walkie-talkie buzzed again. "All available team members to the front for carry-out assistance," came the automated message. Confused, we rarely had customers needing carry-out help at this hour. I made my way to the front. As I approached the checkout area, I noticed something odd. A customer in a bright red coat was standing motionless at the only open register, facing away from me. Rule 4 flashed in my mind. If you see a customer wearing all red, notify management immediately. Do not approach them. I reached for my walkie-talkie to call Craig when the figure in red slowly began to turn. Something about the movement wasn't right. Too smooth, too continuous, like a mannequin on a rotating display stand. I backed away, heart pounding, and bumped into someone. Spinning around, I found Maria, her face drained of color. "Don't look at it," she whispered, pulling me behind a display of clearance Valentine's candy. "That's not a customer." "What the hell is it then?" I hissed. "I don't know, but it's been standing there for 10 minutes. No one's rung it up. It's just waiting." A horrible thought struck me. Jasmine just went to the stockroom, looking for freezer section 3. Maria cursed under her breath. "We need to find her, now." "But the rules. We're supposed to notify management about the customer." "Craig already knows," Maria said grimly. "He's the one who called for carry-out assistance. He's keeping us busy up front while Jasmine walks into a trap." I peered around the display. The figure in red was now fully facing the store, but I couldn't make out its features from this distance. Just the unnaturally bright red of its clothing, seemingly glowing under the fluorescent lights. "I'm going after Jasmine," I decided. "I'm coming with you," Maria said, "but we have to be careful. No one breaks 2 rules in one night and lives to tell about it." As we slipped away from the front of the store, I couldn't shake the feeling that the red figure's featureless face was tracking our movement, invisible eyes watching us from beneath that too bright hood. And I wondered if we were already too late. The stockroom was eerily silent as Maria and I slipped through the double doors. Without the daytime bustle of employees unloading trucks and sorting merchandise, the cavernous space felt impossibly vast. Shadows stretched between towers of pallets and shelving units, and the overhead lights seemed dimmer than usual, as if reluctant to fully illuminate the space. "Jasmine?" I called softly, then louder. "Jasmine!" No response. Maria pointed to the back of the stockroom. "Freezers are that way." We moved carefully through the labyrinth of merchandise, following the blue line painted on the concrete floor that led to the food storage areas. The familiar hum of refrigeration units grew louder as we approached, but something else underpinned the mechanical noise. A low, almost subsonic vibration that I felt more than heard, like bass from a distant concert. "Do you feel that?" I whispered. Maria nodded, her face tense in the dim light. "Something's wrong." The freezer section was divided into lettered areas. Freezer AM1 contained dairy backstock. AM2 held frozen meals and vegetables. We paused at the end of the hallway, where the blue line terminated at a junction. "There shouldn't be anything past this point," Maria said, pointing at the store layout map mounted on the wall. The blueprint clearly showed only 2 freezer units, yet directly ahead of us, a heavy metal door stood where there should have been a solid wall. A freshly printed label read, "Freezer Section AM3" in stark black letters. "That's impossible," I breathed. "I've worked here for months. That door was never there before." "It wasn't," Maria confirmed, her voice barely audible. "But now it is." The vibration grew stronger, making the metal shelving around us resonate faintly. Cold air seeped from beneath the mysterious door, forming tendrils of fog that slithered along the concrete floor. "Jasmine's cart," I said suddenly, pointing to an abandoned inventory cart a few feet from the door. A clipboard lay on top, the manifest clearly visible, along with a half-eaten protein bar. "She was here," Maria whispered. "Recently." The implication hung between us. If Jasmine's cart was here, but she wasn't. "We have to check," I said, moving toward the door. Maria grabbed my arm. "Rule 5, Alex. Don't even approach it." I hesitated, torn between following the rules and potentially leaving Jasmine to whatever fate had claimed Dennis and Megan. But if she's in there, then she's already broken the rule, Maria finished grimly. A muffled sound from beyond the door made us both freeze, something between a shout and a sob, quickly cut off. "That was her," I said, pulling away from Maria's grip. "I'm going in." "Alex, don't!" Maria's voice was desperate. "We don't know what's in there." "Exactly. And we never will if we just keep following the rules blindly." I took a deep breath. "Cover for me. If I'm not back in 5 minutes, well, just make sure Craig doesn't find out." Before she could protest further, I strode forward and grasped the freezer door's handle. It was ice cold, burning against my palm like dry ice. The vibration intensified, rattling my teeth as I pulled the heavy door open. A blast of frigid air hit me, carrying a smell that wasn't right for a food storage freezer. Something mineral and organic at once, like wet limestone and rotting vegetation. The space beyond was dimly lit by flickering fluorescent tubes, revealing not the expected freezer shelves, but a long, narrow corridor stretching much farther than the building's footprint should have allowed. Impossibly, the corridor sloped gently downward, its walls changing from the white-painted drywall of the stockroom to rough concrete, then to what looked like natural stone as it descended. Frost coated every surface, sparkling under the unsteady lights. "Jasmine?" I called, my voice echoing strangely, as if in a much larger space than what I could see. I took a step inside, then another. The temperature dropped with each step until my breath clouded heavily before me. The door swung closed behind me with a resolute thunk, and I spun around in panic, only to find there was no longer a door, just a smooth rock wall glistening with ice crystals. "No, no, no," I muttered, running my hands over the cold stone. "This isn't happening." But it was. I was trapped in a place that shouldn't exist, that couldn't exist within the constraints of a suburban Target store. I forced myself to breathe, to think. The only way out was forward, through whatever this impossible corridor led to. I continued down the sloping path, the walls now completely natural stone, as if carved through the living rock beneath boulder. The fluorescent lights gave way to an ambient blue glow that seemed to emanate from the ice itself. The vibration I'd felt outside was stronger here, resolving into a rhythmic pulse that matched the flickering of the ethereal light. After what felt like minutes but could have been longer, my watch had stopped at the moment I entered. The corridor widened into a vast chamber. I gasped, momentarily forgetting my fear. The cavern stretched beyond what I could see, its ceiling lost in darkness above. Massive ice formations hung like chandeliers, catching and refracting the blue light. The floor dropped away into a pit at the center, roughly circular and perhaps 30 feet across. From this pit rose the source of the blue illumination, a column of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Near the edge of the pit stood Jasmine, her back to me, purple hair unmistakable even in the otherworldly light. She was perfectly still, staring into the luminous abyss. "Jasmine," I called, hurrying toward her. "We need to go." She didn't respond, didn't even turn as I approached. When I reached her side and saw her face, I nearly screamed. Her expression was one of rapture, eyes wide and reflecting the pulsing light, but that wasn't what horrified me. Her skin was changing, crystallizing in patches that spread like frost across a window. Where the transformation was complete, her flesh had the same translucent blue-white quality as the ice formations around us. "Jasmine," I said again, grabbing her shoulder. It was cold and hard beneath my fingers. Slowly, she turned to look at me, movement stiff, as if her joints were freezing from the inside out. "Alex?" Her voice sounded distant, echoing like we were speaking across a canyon. "It's beautiful down there. Can you see them?" I forced myself to look into the pit. The blue light obscured whatever lay at the bottom, but as my eyes adjusted, I began to make out shapes moving within the glow, humanoid figures, dozens of them, moving in slow circles around the light source. With a shock of recognition, I spotted a familiar jacket among them. Dennis, or what used to be Dennis, now half crystallized like Jasmine, shambling in the endless procession. And there were others I recognized, faces from employee photos in the break room, including Megan, all in various states of transformation, all circling the light in silent worship. "They're feeding it," Jasmine whispered, her words slurring as the crystallization crept up her neck. "Becoming part of it. It's so hungry, Alex. It's been here so long, under the mountain." I backed away, heart hammering. "We have to leave. Now." "I can't," she said simply. "I broke the rule. This is what happens." As if in response to her words, tendrils of blue light rose from the pit, reaching toward Jasmine like curious fingers. Where they touched her, the crystallization accelerated. "The rules," she continued, her voice becoming more mechanical as her throat froze. "They're not to protect us. They're to control how many it takes. When it takes them, there's a schedule. Craig knows he's its keeper." The realization hit me like a physical blow. The rules weren't warnings. They were a feeding system, structured sacrifices to whatever ancient hunger lived beneath the store. And Craig wasn't just allowing it. He was facilitating it. "I'm getting help," I promised, though I had no idea how I'd return or who would believe me. "Too late for me," Jasmine said, now barely recognizable. "But tell Maria." The voice recorder. "It's in my locker. The combination is 103198. With a final, jerky movement, she turned back toward the pit and took a step forward, then another. I couldn't bear to watch what happened next. I ran, back up the sloping corridor, the sound of crystalline chimes following me as more of the store's unfortunate employees joined the procession below. To my shock, the stone passageway ended at a door, the freezer door, as if it had never disappeared. I burst through it, gasping for air that wasn't laced with ancient cold, and nearly collided with Maria, who was standing exactly where I'd left her, eyes wide with fear. "Alex, you've been gone for 2 minutes. What happened? Where's Jasmine?" I opened my mouth to explain, but no words would come. How could I describe what I'd seen, what I now knew? The stockroom lights flickered, and for a moment I thought I saw frost spreading across the nearest shelf. Then Craig's voice came over the intercom, unnaturally calm. "Alex Donovan and Maria Diaz to the manager's office. Immediately." Maria's face went pale. "He knows." I nodded grimly. The image of Jasmine's half-crystallized face burned into my memory. He's known all along. "We're not going," Maria declared, her voice steadier than I expected. "We need to leave. Now." I stared at her, the reality of what I'd witnessed still freezing my thoughts. "You don't understand. I saw them. Dennis, Megan, and now Jasmine. They're not dead. They're changing." Maria grabbed my shoulders. "Alex, listen to me. We need to get out of here before." "Alex Donovan and Maria Diaz to the manager's office. This is your final call." Craig's voice over the intercom had shifted, carrying an undertone that made my skin crawl, the same hollow quality I'd heard when my name was called to the freight elevator. "We can't just leave," I realized aloud. "Our cards, our personal information, everything is in the system. Craig knows where we live." The thought of whatever influence lurked beneath the store reaching beyond these walls sent a fresh wave of panic through me. "Then what do we do?" Maria asked. I remembered Jasmine's final words. The voice recorder. She said it's in her locker. We moved quickly through the back hallways, avoiding the main floor where the figure in red might still be waiting. The employee locker room was empty, the overhead lights humming as we scanned the rows of metal doors. "Here," Maria pointed to a locker with a small purple sticker on it, Jasmine's subtle personalization in the corporate environment. I dialed the combination, 103198. Halloween 1998, probably her birthday. The locker swung open to reveal a denim jacket, makeup bag, and at the bottom, the digital voice recorder Maria had shown me earlier. "She must have taken it from you," I said, grabbing the device. "I gave it to her," Maria corrected. "After our talk. Told her to keep it running during her shift, just in case." I thumbed the playback button with shaking fingers. Jasmine's voice emerged, quiet but clear. "It's 2:45 a.m. Craig just told me to inventory freezer section 3, but Alex warned me not to go there. I'm recording this while walking toward the stockroom. If something happens..." A pause. "I don't know. This feels stupid, but I'm scared. The way everyone's been acting tonight." The audio continued, capturing the sound of the stockroom door opening, the squeak of cartwheels on concrete. Then Jasmine's confused voice. "Wait, this can't be right. The map doesn't show..." Her footsteps slowed. "There's a door here. It wasn't here before, I swear. Freezer section AM3. But Alex said, maybe I should..." The recording grew muffled, as if Jasmine had put the recorder in her pocket. I heard the freezer door opening, her sharp intake of breath, then the same subsonic vibration I'd felt in the corridor. Her footsteps echoed strangely as she moved forward. "Oh my God," her voice whispered. "This isn't possible. The hall goes down. Way down. Where am I?" The recorder captured her increasingly panicked breathing as she ventured deeper. Then, suddenly, her tone changed. "It's beautiful. The light, the people. They're all... Oh, I understand now. It's so hungry. It's always been hungry." A new voice entered the recording, one I recognized with a chill. "Jasmine Baker," Craig said, his voice different from usual, deeper, resonating oddly. "You have violated Rule 5, the Ancient One claims you." "Who are you really?" Jasmine asked, her voice already taking on the distant quality I'd heard in the cavern. "I am the keeper of the gate, the tender of the rules. I have served the Ancient One since this land was claimed for the new mall in 1973. Before me, others kept the old ways on this sacred ground." "The Native Americans," Jasmine said. "They knew about this place. They wisely avoided it," Craig replied, "until progress demanded concrete and steel above the sleeping one. Now it wakes. Now it must be fed." "Fed employees?" "The hunger is specific, timed. 6 rules, 6 violations, 6 sacrifices per cycle. Then it sleeps again, until the next cycle begins." "How many cycles?" Jasmine's voice was fading, the crystallization process likely advancing. "I am the 3rd keeper," Craig said. "The cycle repeats roughly every 5 years." The recording became difficult to hear, Craig's voice murmuring something that sounded ritualistic, Jasmine's responses growing fainter. Then, finally, silence, broken only by the rhythmic pulsing that emanated from the pit. Maria and I stared at the recorder as it continued to play dead air. Finally, I switched it off. "Jesus Christ," Maria whispered. 5 years? 30 years of sacrifices? And we're in the middle of a cycle, I added grimly. Megan, Dennis, and now Jasmine. 3 more to go. "Unless we stop it," Maria said, a determined edge to her voice. "How?" "You heard him. He's been doing this for decades. The thing underneath has been here maybe centuries." Before Maria could respond, the locker room door swung open. Both of us froze, expecting Craig, but it was Thomas, another overnight stalker. "There you are," he said, breathless. "Craig's looking for you. He's pissed." "Tomas," Maria said carefully, "have you noticed anything strange tonight? You mean besides Craig acting like someone died? Or the fact that no one's seen Jasmine in an hour?" His attempt at humor fell flat as he registered our expressions. "What's going on?" I exchanged a look with Maria. Could we trust him? Would he even believe us? "We need to leave," I said finally. "All of us, right now." Thomas frowned. "Dude, I can't just walk out mid-shift. I need this job." "Trust me, it's not worth your life," I insisted. His frown deepened. What are you talking about? Maria stepped forward. The rules, Thomas. The laminated card they gave us after Megan's accident. Have you been following them? Those weird things? Yeah, I guess. Seemed like some corporate liability bullshit, but they're not. I cut him off. Megan broke a rule, so did Dennis, and now Jasmine. Thomas's eyes widened slightly. Wait, you're serious? You think there's actually something to those rules? Before I could respond, the overhead lights flickered violently, then dimmed to a dull glow. The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, my breath visible in front of my face. He's coming, Maria whispered. Who? Craig? Thomas asked, shivering. Not just Craig, I said, pocketing the recorder. We need to move, now. We slipped out of the locker room, the three of us huddled together as we navigated the back corridors of the store. The lights continued to fluctuate, creating strobing shadows that seemed to move independently of their sources. Where are we going? Tomas whispered. Out the emergency exit, Maria replied. The one by electronics. It'll trigger the alarm, he protested. Good, I said grimly. As we rounded the corner into the main store, I skidded to a halt. The figure in red stood motionless at the far end of the aisle, facing us directly. In the dimmed lighting, I could finally see what I'd missed before. It had no face, just a smooth expanse of skin where features should be. Don't look at it, I hissed, pulling Thomas back. Rule 4, don't approach anyone in all red. What the fuck is that thing? Tomas gasped. A guardian, came Craig's voice from behind us. We spun around. Craig stood blocking our retreat, his posture unnaturally stiff, his eyes now a milky blue that caught the emergency lights. You've learned too much, he said, his voice that same resonant tone from the recording. The Ancient One senses your knowledge, your interference. Let us go, Craig, Maria demanded, her voice only slightly trembling. Whatever this thing is paying you, it's not worth it. A strange expression crossed his face, something almost like pity. You misunderstand. I am not paid. I am chosen, as all keepers are chosen. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing an arm that was partially crystallized, the same blue-white substance I'd seen on Jasmine. I am becoming part of it. Eventually, a new keeper will be needed. I had hopes for you, Alex. Me? I felt sick. Your curiosity, your attention to detail, the way you notice patterns. He nodded. The Ancient One noticed you too. But now, he sighed, now you must join the others below. All three of you. The red figure began moving toward us, its gait smooth and silent. From the other direction, Craig advanced, his movements becoming jerkier, more mechanical. Split up, Maria whispered urgently. Emergency exits on 3 sides of the store. Go. We broke in different directions. I sprinted down the main aisle, hearing footsteps following, whether Craig's or the red figures I couldn't tell. I weaved through home goods, knocking over displays to create obstacles behind me. As I passed electronics, I glanced at my watch. 3:15 a.m. 2 minutes until the aisle 7 deadline. I was currently in aisle 9, but to reach the nearest emergency exit, I'd need to cut through aisle 7. I hesitated for a crucial second, then made my decision. I could make it through before 3:17. I had to. I darted into aisle 7, sprinting past bedding displays and bathroom accessories. The exit sign glowed ahead, promising escape. My watch read 3:16 as I reached the halfway point. Suddenly, the floor beneath me seemed to shift, become less solid. I pushed harder, my feet feeling as if they were running through sand. The exit remained the same distance away no matter how hard I ran, like a nightmare where you can never reach safety. My watch ticked over to 3:17 a.m. The floor rippled, then parted beneath me like water. I screamed as I plunged into sudden darkness, the store lights vanishing above as the floor sealed seamlessly over my head. I was falling, tumbling through space that shouldn't exist beneath a retail store. I landed hard on a rough stone surface, the impact knocking the wind from my lungs. As I gasped for air, I recognized the blue glow illuminating the space around me. I was back in the cavern, but in a different section than before, a narrow ledge overlooking the main chamber where I'd found Jasmine. Below, the procession continued, silent figures circling the light. I squinted, making out Maria among them now, her transformation already begun, frost creeping up her arms as she joined the endless march. She tried to use the freight elevator, Craig's voice said from behind me. After 1 a.m. Rule 6, I turned to find him standing on the ledge, looking more inhuman than before, his skin now almost entirely crystalline, light pulsing beneath the surface in time with the glow from the pit. "And Thomas?" I asked, my voice hoarse. The customer in red found him hiding in the employee bathroom. After midnight, Rule 3. Despair washed over me. We had all broken different rules, all ended up here. The entire escape attempt had been orchestrated. "Why?" I demanded. "Why all of this? The elaborate rules, the specific times and places? If this thing just wants sacrifices, why not take anyone?" Craig's face shifted into what might have been a smile, the crystalline structure of his features catching the blue light. "The Ancient One feeds not just on flesh, but on fear, on anticipation, on the knowledge that breaking the rules leads to punishment." He gestured to the pit. "It has been here since before the mountains rose. It will remain long after this building is dust, and it has always had its keepers." He approached me slowly, his movements growing stiffer as more of his body transformed. "You broke Rule 1, Alex. You remained in aisle 7 past 3:17 a.m. He extended a half-crystallized hand. "It's time to join the others." I backed away, feeling the edge of the ledge behind my heels, the vast drop to the chamber floor yawning behind me. "And if I refuse?" Craig's inhuman smile widened. "No one refuses the Ancient One. The only choice is how you serve. As sustenance," he gestured to the procession below, "or as keeper." He pointed to himself. "And you've already made your choice by breaking a rule." As he reached for me, the cavern trembled, stalactites of ice vibrating overhead. The blue light from the pit intensified, pulsing faster, hungrier. The feeding cycle was reaching its climax, and I was about to become part of it. My back foot slipped over the edge of the ledge, sending small stones tumbling into the abyss. Craig's crystallized hand was inches from my face, the blue light pulsing beneath his translucent skin in hypnotic rhythm. "Don't fight it, Alex," he said, his voice reverberating unnaturally. "The transition is easier if you accept it." "Like you did?" I asked, desperately playing for time. "How did you become the keeper, Craig? Were you just another employee who broke a rule?" His hand paused mid-reach, something like nostalgia passing over his inhuman features. "I was the night manager when they built this store. The construction crew kept reporting incidents, objects moving, unusual cold spots. I was the one who found the first body, a security guard, frozen solid in what would become the stockroom area. The police blamed a refrigerant leak. And then what? This thing spoke to you?" Craig's milky eyes focused on something distant. "It showed me the truth beneath, the endless hunger that must be satisfied if this town, this state, is to survive." He refocused on me. "The Ancient One could consume all of Boulder in a single night if it wished. The rules, the scheduled feedings, they're a mercy." My mind raced. If I could keep him talking, maybe I could find a way out. The recorder was still in my pocket, capturing every word. Is that why Target built here? They know about this? Craig made a sound between a laugh and a sigh. Corporations build where it's profitable, but places of commerce have always been drawn to sites of power. The mall before this, the trading post before that. The land calls to those who would exchange value for value. His hand moved forward again. Enough stalling. The Ancient One waits. I glanced behind me at the drop, then back at Craig, a desperate plan forming. You said I have a choice, sustenance or keeper. I'm choosing. I want to be the keeper. Craig paused, genuine surprise rippling across his crystalline features. You? Why not? You said yourself I was noticed, that I pay attention to patterns. I forced confidence into my voice. I can maintain the rules, ensure the feeding schedule. I can serve. Something shifted in Craig's demeanor. Was it relief? He lowered his hand slightly. The transition is not easy. The burden heavier than you know. I'm ready, I lied. Show me what to do. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. Come. The Ancient One must approve you. He turned and began walking along the narrow ledge, away from where I'd fallen. I followed cautiously, mapping the cavern in my mind. There had to be a way back to the store, back to the surface. The ledge wound around the perimeter of the main chamber, gradually descending toward the pit. Below us, the procession continued. Store employees past and present, shuffling in their endless circle. I caught glimpses of Maria and Tomas, now fully integrated into the line, their transformations nearly complete. How many? I asked, nodding toward the procession. How many people have been taken? 108 since I became keeper, Craig replied without emotion. 6 per cycle, 6 cycles per decade, over 3 decades. The number hit me like a physical blow. Over 100 people, their disappearances explained away as accidents, resignations, transfers. Lives erased while the corporation continued operating, selling housewares and electronics, just feet above an ancient horror. The path ended at a small platform jutting over the edge of the pit. From here, I could see that the blue light emanated not from the bottom of the pit, but from something suspended at its center, a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with inner light, like a giant heart made of ice and light. Before I could respond, the platform beneath my feet dissolved into blue light. I fell, but instead of dropping into the pit, the sensation was more like being pulled upward through rushing water. Darkness enveloped me, then shattered into painful fluorescent brightness. I gasped, finding myself sprawled on the floor of aisle 7, surrounded by toppled display items. My watch read 3:19 a.m. Only 2 minutes had passed in the world above. There he is, a voice called out. I turned to see Hector, another over 19 member, hurrying toward me. Dude, are you okay? We've been looking everywhere for you. I struggled to my feet, disoriented by the sudden transition. I'm fine, just slipped. Manager wants everyone in the break room, now. Hector looked worried. They can't find Maria or Thomas or Jasmine. Craig's freaking out. Of course he was. The entity had returned me to the store, but Craig was still below, completing his transformation. The feeding cycle had to continue, but the Ancient One needed someone to maintain order above, to prevent panic while it claimed its next victims. It was testing me, I realized. Seeing if I would play along, begin taking on the keeper role by calming the staff, explaining away the disappearances. Hector, I said urgently, has Craig given you a laminated card? With rules. He frowned. Number, what rules? So not everyone had received them, only those marked for potential sacrifice. That explained why some employees seemed oblivious to the strange atmosphere. I made a split-second decision. Listen carefully. There's something wrong with this store. Maria, Thomas, and Jasmine aren't coming back, and I think more people are in danger. Hector's frown deepened. Is this some kind of joke? I wish it was. I pulled out the voice recorder. I have proof, but we need to get everyone out of here first. Alex, A new voice interrupted, a voice I recognized with a chill. We both turned to see a figure approaching from the direction of the stockroom. It was Craig, or what appeared to be Craig. His movements were normal, his skin human, no sign of the crystalline transformation I'd witnessed below. But his eyes held the same milky blue tint, barely perceptible under the store lights. "There you are," he said pleasantly. "We've been concerned about you. Why don't you come to my office so we can talk?" Hector looked between us, confusion evident on his face. "Sir, Alex was just saying something about Maria and the others." "A misunderstanding." Craig cut him off smoothly. "They left early, a plumbing emergency at the apartments they share. I authorized it myself." The lie was delivered with perfect corporate blandness. Hector seemed to accept it without question, relaxing visibly. "Hector, would you mind checking on electronics? I think we had a customer call about a pickup." "At 3 a.m.? I challenged. Craig's smile didn't waver. "Online orders never sleep. Isn't that right, Hector?" Sure thing, boss." Hector retreated, casting one last curious glance at us before disappearing down an adjacent aisle. Once he was gone, Craig's expression changed, becoming colder, more alien despite his human appearance. "You surprise me, Alex," he said, his voice now layered with that same resonant quality I'd heard below. "The Ancient One rarely returns a chosen sacrifice." "I'm not convinced I was chosen as a sacrifice," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "More like a recruitment interview." Craig's smile widened fractionally. "Perhaps, but understand this, the hunger must be fed. If not with those who break the rules, then with anyone available." The threat was clear. Play along, or everyone in the store becomes fair game. "I'm still considering the offer," I said carefully. "Good. In the meantime, perhaps you'd like to view the next stage of the cycle." He gestured toward the front of the store. "Shannon at Register 3 has been playing music on her phone during her shift. Against company policy, against Rule 7. I froze. There is no Rule 7. Only 6 rules on the card. Craig's smile turned predatory. "There's always a new rule waiting to be written, Alex. Always another feeding opportunity. The question is, will you watch from the side of the collector or the collected?" As the overhead lights flickered in response to his words, I realized my choice was approaching faster than I'd anticipated. Rule 7. A new rule I hadn't even been warned about, created to ensnare Shannon, a quiet, studious CU student who worked register to pay her tuition. A decent person who didn't deserve to join the procession of crystallized workers circling an ancient hunger beneath the store. "You can't do this," I said, my voice low but firm. "She doesn't even know about the rules." Craig tilted his head, studying me with those subtly milky eyes. "Knowledge of the rules has never been a prerequisite for punishment, Alex, just as ignorance of the law doesn't prevent its enforcement." "That's not justice." "Justice?" Craig laughed, the sound echoing strangely in the empty aisle. "The Ancient One doesn't concern itself with human concepts, like justice. It hungers. It feeds. It is as fundamental as gravity or time." The overhead speakers crackled to life, playing the store's closing music, despite the fact that we were hours from opening, let alone closing. A signal to Shannon, I realized. A lure to break the new rule. "You're testing me," I said to Craig, understanding flooding through me. "Seeing if I'll warn her or help you collect her." His expression remained impassive. "Consider it an assessment of your potential. The Ancient One remains undecided about you." I brushed past him, heading toward the front registers. "Then I'll make the decision easy." I half expected him to stop me, but he simply turned to watch me go, that unnerving smile still playing on his lips. The confidence in his posture sent a chill through me. Did he think I couldn't save her? Or was he counting on my interference as part of some larger plan? The front of the store was dimly lit, with only security lights illuminating the checkout lanes. Shannon sat at register 3, wireless earbuds in, nodding slightly to music only she could hear as she sorted through coupon inserts for the morning team. She seemed completely unaware of the danger she was in. "Shannon," I called out, approaching quickly. She didn't hear me, lost in her music, the very violation of Rule 7 that had marked her for sacrifice. "Shannon," I tried again, louder, waving my arms. She glanced up, startled, and removed one earbud. "Alex? What's up? You need to leave. Right now." I reached her register, speaking urgently. "Don't ask questions, just clock out and go." Her brow furrowed with concern. "Are you okay? You look really pale." "I'm fine, but you're not safe here. None of us are." I glanced over my shoulder, half expecting to see Craig or the red figure watching us. The store seemed empty, which only heightened my anxiety. "Please, Shannon, trust me." She hesitated, clearly torn between concern for me and confusion over my behavior. "Is this about those people who quit suddenly? Maria and the others?" "They didn't quit," I said grimly. "They're still here, just below." Understanding dawned on her face, but not the kind I was hoping for. "Oh, God. You're having some kind of episode, aren't you? Should I call someone?" "No." I grabbed her arm as she reached for the store phone. "Listen to me. There's something in this store. Under it. It's been taking people for decades, and you're next if you don't leave right now." She pulled away, real fear flashing in her eyes. Fear of me, not the danger I was warning her about. "Alex, you're scaring me." "Good. Be scared. Fear might keep you alive." I pulled out the voice recorder. "I have proof. Just listen to this for 30 seconds, then decide if I'm crazy." Before I could press play, the lights throughout the store surged brighter, then dimmed again. A hum filled the air, making my teeth vibrate. Shannon's eyes widened. "What was that?" "It's starting," I said, heart pounding. "We need to go, now." This time, she didn't argue. We both moved toward the front doors, but halfway there, she stumbled, crying out in pain. I turned to see her clutching her head, earbuds falling to the floor. "It's in my head," she gasped. Something's talking to me." The Ancient One was reaching for her directly. I grabbed her shoulders. "Fight it, Shannon. Don't listen." Her eyes began to glaze over, a faint blue tint spreading across her pupils. "So cold," she whispered. "So hungry." The floor beneath her feet began to shimmer, turning translucent like ice on a lake beginning to crack. I recognized what was happening, the same phenomenon that had swallowed me in aisle 7. Without thinking, I tackled her, pushing us both clear of the transforming floor, just as it dissolved into a swirling vortex of blue light. We crashed into a display of Valentine's clearance candy, sending heart-shaped boxes flying. "What the hell?" Shannon screamed, staring at the portal that had nearly claimed her. "Run!" I pulled her to her feet. "Emergency exit." We sprinted toward the nearest emergency door, alarm be damned. Shannon reached it first, slamming into the push bar with all her weight. It didn't budge. "It's locked," she cried, ramming her shoulder against it repeatedly. "That's impossible," I said, joining her effort. "Fire code. These can't lock from the inside." But it was locked, or blocked, or fused shut by forces beyond normal physics. We tried another exit with the same result. The store had become a sealed trap. "Alex," Shannon whispered, pointing behind us. I turned to see Craig standing at the end of the aisle, but he wasn't alone. The red figure stood beside him, its featureless face now visibly rippling, as if whatever lay beneath the crimson exterior was struggling to break free. "The Ancient One grows impatient," Craig called, his voice now fully reverted to that resonant, inhuman tone. "The cycle must continue." "We need to hide," I told Shannon. "The stockroom has blind spots the cameras don't cover." She nodded, terrified but focused. We backed away from Craig and his red companion, then turned and ran, weaving through the store's maze-like layout toward the stockroom. As we passed the electronics section, I skidded to a halt. "Wait! Are you insane?" Shannon hissed. "They're right behind us. Trust me." I darted down the aisle, scanning the merchandise until I found what I needed, a display of wireless speakers. I grabbed the largest one, along with a universal charger. "What are you doing?" Shannon demanded. "Getting help." I handed her the items. "Keep running. Get to the stockroom, but stay away from the freezers, especially anything labeled Freezer Section AM3. The lights flickered violently as the store's sound system screeched with feedback. The temperature dropped sharply, frost crystallizing on metal shelving around us. "It's coming," I said, feeling the same mental pressure I'd experienced in the cavern, the ancient one extending its consciousness throughout the building. "Go, I'll be right behind you." Shannon hesitated only briefly before running toward the stockroom doors. I turned back toward electronics, grabbing one more crucial item, a prepaid phone from a locked case that had mysteriously unlocked itself as the store's systems went haywire. I activated it as I ran, grateful for Target's efficient packaging that included a pre-charged battery. The signal was weak, unnaturally so, but present. 1 bar. Enough for what I needed. The stockroom was dark when I burst through the doors, only emergency lights providing dim illumination. "Shannon?" I called softly. "Here," came her reply from behind the stack of pallets. "What's your plan?" I joined her in the makeshift hiding spot, quickly connecting the speaker to the phone. "We can't get out, but maybe we can get a message out." I held up the voice recorder. "This has everything. Craig's confession, the truth about what's underneath the store." "And who exactly are we sending it to?" she asked skeptically. "Everyone." I pulled up the phone's browser, navigating to the local news station's tip line. Boulder Daily Camera, 9 News Denver, CBS 4, police, FBI, anyone who might listen. "You really think they'll believe this? That there's some kind of monster under a Target store eating employees?" I plugged the recorder into the speaker. "They don't need to believe the supernatural parts. The disappearances are real. The deaths are real. Once authorities start looking, they'll find enough inconsistencies to shut this place down, dig it up. And that will stop this thing?" I hesitated. "I don't know, but exposure is the only weapon we have right now." I pressed play on the recorder, holding the phone's microphone to the speaker. Jasmine's voice filled our hiding space, followed by Craig's damning admissions about the Ancient One and its sacrifices. I recorded a short video to accompany the audio, explaining the situation, naming the victims, urging immediate investigation. The upload was excruciatingly slow on the single bar of service, but it was working. Das Predichat, 15%, 20%. A loud crash from the direction of the freezers made us both jump. "They're in the stockroom," Shannon whispered. "Keep watching, miss," I instructed, handing her the phone. "Make sure it uploads completely, then send the file to this list of emails." I scribbled news contacts on a piece of cardboard and handed it to her. "I'll lead them away." "Alex, no. It's our only chance." The upload had reached 35%. I've already broken a rule and survived. Maybe I can do it again. Before she could protest further, I slipped away from our hiding spot, deliberately making noise to draw attention from Shannon's position. The strategy worked immediately. I heard footsteps changing direction, following me deeper into the stockroom. I navigated the familiar layout in near darkness, heading toward the loading bay. If I could get one of the truck doors open, maybe Shannon could escape while I distracted our pursuers. I rounded a corner and came face to face with the red figure, its featureless visage inches from mine. I recoiled, remembering Rule 4. Do not approach customers wearing all red. Too late. Its arm shot out, impossibly long and fluid, wrapping around my wrist with burning cold intensity. Where it touched, my skin began to crystallize, blue frost spreading up my arm. "I tried to give you a choice." Craig's voice came from behind me. "The Ancient One was willing to elevate you, make you more than human." I struggled against the red figure's grip, but the crystallization continued spreading, numbing my arm, creeping toward my shoulder. "What happens?" I gasped through the pain. "When there's no one left to sacrifice? When people stop applying to work here?" Craig circled around to face me, his transformation now progressing rapidly, blue light pulsing beneath translucent skin. The store closes. The building is demolished. The land lies dormant for a time. Then another structure rises. Retail, residential, office space. The Ancient One adapts its feeding methods accordingly. "It's happened before," I realized. "Many times," he confirmed, "across centuries. The hunger is eternal." The crystallization reached my shoulder, sending spikes of cold agony through my chest. I fell to my knees, the red figure's grip never faltering. "And now, Alex," Craig said almost gently, "you join the procession. The 7th sacrifice completes the cycle." "7th?" I managed through gritted teeth. I thought there were only supposed to be 6 per cycle. Something like unease flickered across Craig's crystalline features. "The Ancient One altered the pattern. It requires more this time." The implication sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the spreading frost. The hunger was growing. The rules were changing. Whatever bargain had kept this thing contained, feeding on only a few sacrifices at specific times, was breaking down. As my consciousness began to fade, I had one final, desperate hope: that Shannon had completed the upload, that the truth would spread beyond these walls, that even if I joined the endless procession below, someone would come looking, would dig deep enough to find the Ancient One's sanctuary, and perhaps finally end its hunger. 3 weeks later, the Boulder Daily Camera's headline read, "Target Corporation announces permanent closure of Pearl Street location amid investigation." The accompanying article detailed the ongoing police investigation into the disappearances of 6 employees over a 3-week period, with speculation about possible criminal activity in the building's substructure. Shannon Baker sat in a coffee shop across from the now shuttered Target, watching as workers erected a chain-link fence around the property. Yellow police tape crisscrossed the main entrance, and the unmarked government vehicles had been coming and going for days. The official story involved structural concerns and possible environmental contamination, convenient half-truths that obscured the full horror. Her hands trembled slightly as she sipped her coffee. The nightmares hadn't stopped. Visions of blue light, crystalline figures, and Alex's final moments as the red figure enveloped him. The authorities had found her hiding in the stockroom at dawn, clutching a phone with partially uploaded files that would eventually spark the investigation. They hadn't believed her story, of course. Post-traumatic stress, they said. Hallucinations brought on by extreme fear after witnessing her co-workers' abductions. The recordings helped launch the investigation, but the supernatural elements were dismissed as delusions, until they started digging. Shannon's phone buzzed with a text from Detective Reyes, the lead investigator who had initially humored her, then gradually stopped dismissing her claims as excavation beneath the store progressed. Ground-penetrating radar found something at 120 feet. They're bringing in specialized equipment. Stay available. She put the phone down, her gaze returning to the store. The building looked harmless in daylight, just another retail box waiting for demolition. No hint of the ancient evil beneath, or the procession of souls circling endlessly around a hungry light. Sometimes she wondered if she'd ever truly understand what happened that night, if Alex's sacrifice had meant anything in the end. The news had reported that Target was donating the land to the city after demolition to be converted into a memorial park. Whether that decision came from genuine remorse or the corporation's eagerness to distance itself from the growing scandal, she couldn't say. A man sat down at the table next to hers, opening a newspaper. The headline caught her attention. Similar disappearances found at other retail locations nationwide. The investigation was spreading, connections being made to other sites with patterns of missing employees, sudden closures, unexplained phenomena. Alex's desperate broadcast had sparked something larger than he could have imagined. Shannon finished her coffee and stood, taking one last look at the Target building. She thought about the rules, the strange, specific prohibitions that had seemed so arbitrary. A warning system disguised as corporate policy, maintaining a delicate balance between the world above and the hunger below. She wondered what new rules would be written at the next feeding ground. What new keeper would be chosen to maintain them? As she turned to leave, her gaze fell on a help wanted sign in the window of the McGuckin hardware store next door. Among the standard job requirements, a small note at the bottom caught her eye. Must be willing to work night shift. Additional store policies apply to overnight employees. A chill ran through her, despite the warm spring day. She pulled out her phone and called Detective Reyes. "I think I found another one," she said, staring at the sign. "And I don't think we stopped anything. It's just moving." Behind her, beneath the fenced-off Target, something pulsed with ancient patience. The hunger would wait. The cycle would continue. The rules would adapt. And somewhere in the endless procession below, Alex Donovan's partly crystallized form circled the light, his consciousness still fighting, still aware, still hoping someone would find a way to break the final rule.